Oh, you thought Assassination was sleeping? Welcome to the Assassination Mythic Plus 9.0.5 guide, carefully crafted for you by me with the help of the Ravenholdt Road Discord. I might as well shout them out now. Thank you guys. But yeah, I'm going to be bringing you hopefully everything you need to know about Mythic Plus, Assassination in 9.0.5 Shadowlands, talents, Soulbinds, all that good stuff. I will have an emphasis on Venthir because I play Venthir, but I will have a little section on Bone Spike, or I'll reference it somewhere in the video. But yeah, I'm going to be bringing you all that good stuff. Hopefully be teaching you not only which buttons to press and in what order, but also how to kit out your character, all that good usual stuff. And also why you'd press those buttons and why you'd make certain decisions in certain situations, things like that. So hopefully you can gain some knowledge into kind of like my mindset, or just generally the mindset of someone who knows their way around this game. I'd hope I know my way around this game by now. And yeah, make better decisions, go away a better player from this video, as well as knowing your class better and the intricacies of it. So before we get into all that, I will just quickly shout out my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/JustRuss. It's spelled the same as the YouTube channel. Feel free to come over there. I stream most days. We do all kinds of stuff, rogue stuff, non-rogue stuff, WoW stuff, non-WoW stuff. I'm currently doing 100 push-ups a day, every single day for 30 days. And I'm making sure I try and do most of those on stream so I can hopefully inspire at least one person to, you know, get up out that chair and do the same. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions over there when I'm live, or put them in the comment section below. I do try and read and reply to every single comment that I can. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video and we'll start with the talents. So I'm going to start with the level 15 row here. We're going to be talking about elaborate planning. Now this buff is basically a 10% damage buff every single time that we use a finisher for 4 seconds. Now this is on all of our abilities, so a really good overall buff to just everything that we're doing. We're going to have a lot of bleeds ticking, a lot of poisons going out. So this is just going to buff all of that as well as our finishers. Really good buff to have on cleave and AoE and stuff. So perfectly suited for Mythic Plus. And on top of that, we're going to be getting a lot more energy due to venomous wounds. So we're going to have a lot of garrotes out. We're going to be having a lot of ruptures out. And that's going to mean our energy income is much more than it would be on a single target. And because of that, we can obviously generate more combo points and therefore spend more combo points. So every time that we spend the combo points, that counts as a finisher. And that's going to proc this buff. You can definitely keep very high elaborate planning uptimes, like 80 or higher % throughout dungeons. So this one is just pretty much just a straight 10% damage buff to everything that we're doing most of the time. So the next row we're going to be on Subterfuge. In my opinion, you pretty much cannot run without this talent. It's going to allow us to use stealth abilities for 3 seconds after we break stealth. So we're going to be able to use we're going to be using on Garrote for the most part, almost always. It's going to allow us to actually hit 4 Garrotes every single time that we go into a trash pack. So the first Garrote won't trigger the cooldown, and you've got 3 more seconds to use as many as you can. So you can get 2 more of these empowered Garrotes, because it's going to increase Garrote damage by 80%. So we're going to get an empowered Garrote when we open, an empowered Garrote, and an empowered Garrote, and then a normal Garrote. That's going to be 4 bleeds straight off the bat, ticking with our venomous poisons, giving us energy. And there's a little bit of nuance which I'll talk about later on about how not to overwrite these empowered Garrotes, but very good damage from this. And very good energy regen off the bat, because you will feel quite energy starved towards the start of the pool, and you'll be feeling like you have way too much energy towards like the later in the pool that you get, as well as if you're keeping your bleeds up correctly. So on to level 30, we're going to be running Vigor. You can also run Mark for Death in this row. If you're good at using Mark for Death by sniping it on targets that are going to die soon, it's theoretically a better, DPS increase over Vigor. I personally find Vigor more consistent. However, when I do run Vigor, I miss having like the Mark for Death into Crimson Tempest combo, or Mark for Death into like a new Rupture to get my bleeds rolling quicker at the start of the pool. But I do think that Vigor is just generally the more, the better flowing talent of this row. It is always in use throughout the whole pool on everything that you do. Just having more energy regen, you can store more energy, which means that you can just generally use your abilities a lot more once you do get going. So I'd recommend Vigor here. Onto 35, Cheat Death, pretty much as usual, almost too good to pass up. The amount of times that I've just derped and died or would have died, and Cheat Death has saved me is honestly, I can't even count anymore. So I would highly recommend Cheat Death. The other two are not too bad though if you do know how to use them. Now on the level 40 row, I would suggest Iron Wire. There's a couple reasons for this. Firstly, it does increase the Garrote silence effect. So every time that you do open with your triple Garrote, your triple stealth Garrote, if you can get those on like the caster mobs, that's going to mean that they're silenced and they're going to have to walk over to the tank, which is really, really nice for grouping or death balling mobs together. It's going to force them, because they can't cast, they're going to have to walk to the tank and they'll just all walk into a nice little ball, which generally is just really, really good for everybody's DPS in the group because the mobs will just be closer together. It's good for your DPS because you can rupture things easier. You can hit everything with your Fan of Knives, you can hit everything with your Crimson Tempest and stuff like that. So not only that, but it's also going to smooth out the tank's kind of like damage intake curve at the very, very beginning of the pull. Generally, that's when they might not have their defensives going and things like that because they're trying to group the mobs up. So you're not only helping the tank with the grouping, but you're also helping the tank with this damage intake as well. So really, really good. 8 seconds, 15% damage reduction is almost like a small like defensive off the start of each pull. So if you do play with a tank frequently, maybe they know that you're going to be running Garrotes, which means that they maybe don't have to pop like a mitigation at the very beginning. So on to level 45 talents now. Everybody knows it by now. Alacrity. Finishing moves have a chance to give us haste per combo point, which is pretty much always going to be up. So we're going to be stacking this up to 10% haste, and it's almost never going to drop off. The only time I could see this dropping off in Mythic Plus is between packs if your tank is particularly slow. So you might be tempted to kind of like pull quicker for them. Just let them go at their own pace. Play with a better tank if they're stalling. But yeah, Alacrity, just a general good all-rounder. And on to level 50 row, I would suggest Crimson Tempest. I just think that it does way too much damage not to take. I've been trying with Poison Bomb. I could maybe think of a couple situations where you might want to run Poison Bomb because managing Crimson Tempest is quite difficult, but I would highly recommend you just learn how to manage Crimson Tempest. I will do a kind of a bit more in-depth talk about it later in the video, but in general, Crimson Tempest just does so much damage. It's pretty much going to be top of your damage on your breakdown, especially if there's like any kind of decent amount of AoE in that dungeon, and even if there's just a little bit of AoE in the dungeon. I would highly, highly recommend you learn how to use this properly and keep it up as much as you can. It just does so much damage. So now I'm just going to quickly talk about the legendary, since Crimson Tempest does transition into that pretty well. We're going to be using the Zoldyck legendary, which is the 30% bleeds and poison damage increase to enemies below 30% HP. Just going to act like a nice little execute. Everything is going to be dying all around you all the time. So when you're because of the amount of bleeds and poisons you're going to be having up, it's just a nice little damage increase. It's always going to do its job, and there's really no difference that you have to make to your rotation. There's maybe like some slight min-maxing you could do here and there with focusing targets that are below 30% and things like that, and making sure you try and get as much bleed and poison uptime on those as you can. But in general, if you're playing correctly, this is just going to do its job with no hassle. So quickly talking about the Soulbinds, we're going to be using as Venthir, Theater the Mad Duke, which is the second Soulbind down. He's basically going to give you his Soothing Shade ability, which is basically just going to put up a little umbrella, and you're going to get a Mastery buff if you stand in it. It's great. Mastery is really, really good in multiple target situations because you're just going to be doing more poison and bleed damage. You're obviously going to have a lot of those up, especially if it procs during your subterfuge window, which will be great. One thing that I will note or let you know is that like the animation is quite hard to see sometimes. I put a small clip on the screen for you now, somewhere over there. It's like this small gremlin guy with an umbrella. So just look out for him. It's like a small black circle, very, very faint shadow kind of thing. Just look for it on the ground. And if you can stand in it, it's like a nice little bonus if it procs at a good time. And if you can stand in it. So we're going to I go down the right side so I can pick up the Finesse Conduit Quick Decisions to reduce my Shadow Step cooldown, because I do personally find out Assassination to be quite immobile. So having the extra range and cooldown reduction on your Shadow Step is just a nice thing to have. Then I just run down through the middle to pick up the Potency Conduit, in which I use Lashing Scars. It's generally just going to be good. It's good on single, it's good on AoE, just gives you more lashing damage. And the initial 4 extra hits is going to get your haste ramping up harder and faster. So that's always good for single target, which is nice for boss damage. and that obviously scales with number of targets as well. Haste is just generally good. And then we're going to go down the right side and across down to the left side and pick up the second potency conduit. And this one you can kind of use whichever you'd like. A lot of the time I use Poison Guitar, which is going to increase Fan of Knives damage, and the crit strike chance of Fan of Knives, especially good when there's a lot of like big AoE packs and you're going to be using Fan of Knives a lot. Fan of Knives does decent damage, and obviously the extra crit chance is going to increase the chance that it's going to give us extra combo points with our Seal Fate passive, right? But we're only going to be using Fan of Knives on 4 or more targets. So you still do want to be mutilating up to 3 and Fan of Knivesing on 4+. So only really use this if there's a lot of if it's a dungeon where there's going to be a lot of pulls which are 4 or more targets, right? So there's a couple where maybe you wouldn't want to run this, and instead I would recommend either running lethal poisons or well-placed steel. Now, if you're playing Necrolord, you're going to be wanting to switch out your Lashing Scars one for the Sudden Fractures, which is going to increase the chance at which your Bone Spike will take an extra time every time it does damage, which is great. And most of the people are running either MNE or Heimer with the Gemstone. So depending on if you feel like you need that extra conduit slot, that will probably dictate which decision that you make, of your Soulbinds. And if you do need the extra one, then just use one of the 3 I previously mentioned: Guitar, Well-Placed Steel, or Lethal Poisons. The last thing I do want to talk about in this section is stat priority that you're going to be running in M+. It's pretty similar to the single target stuff in which the stats are pretty much the same order. Haste and crit, and then verse and mastery. They're kind of in 2 separate tiers. Crit is almost as good as haste, to be honest. It scales quite hard with number of targets. So if you are in a dungeon with a lot of constant AoE, maybe on a fortified week as well, crit is going to gain a lot of value. But you do not want to drop your haste. The sims might tell you that haste is terrible for dungeons. That is not the case. It scales with everything anyway, just the same, and you're still going to need a single target damage when stuff impacts dies, and also on bosses and whatnot. So haste and crit is really, really good, and then mastery and verse kind of secondary. Mastery just being not quite as bad as it is in single target. So now I'll just put some footage on the screen for you guys of me hitting some target dummies, and I'll also probably put some Mythic Plus clips I have of me hitting some trash packs and things like that. Well, I talk you through kind of like the general rotation that you'll be deploying on trash as you go in, and then kind of what to do to sustain your damage. And then I'll probably talk you through how you would play with Crimson Tempest on single target, because there's a little bit of nuance to it. You don't want to have it up all the time. You want to be maximizing your Shiv windows still. I'll go into that in a second. So basically, we're going to be stealthing in. We're going to be garroting 3 to 4 times upon opening. If there's 4 or more mobs, then we'll be doing it 4 times. If there's only 3 or 2 or whatever, then we'll be only doing it 2 times. These will be your subterfuge empowered garrotes, so it's very, very important that you do not overwrite these. So we're going to be garroting target 1, garroting target 2, garroting target 3, and if there's a 4th, that one will be an unempowered garrote. And then we're going to be immediately using Crimson Tempest. Very, very important to keep this up as much as possible on AoE. It does so much damage. I would say it's highest priority after like making sure your bleeds are rolling, because you don't want to get energy starved. But as long as you keep your bleeds rolling, you should never run out of energy or even get close to running out of energy. So you should be able to maintain Crimson Tempest all the time. We'll be wanting to build combo points with Mutilate on 1, 2, or 3 targets. So 3 or less. And we'll be wanting to switch to Fan of Knives at 4 or more targets, especially if you're running a lot of crit. And the as I talked about earlier in the conduit section, the Poison Guitar conduit, right? So you're going to be getting a lot of Fan of Knives damage. It does a surprising amount of damage. But yeah, the general prio is pretty much keep Crimson Tempest rolling, maintain it as pretty much your highest priority. Use garrotes on cooldown, but just be careful not to overwrite your empowered garrotes. You want to be trying to maintain Rupture on 3 to 4 targets for energy regen. Potentially 5 targets if you can, if it's just 5 mobs, but that will get quite hectic. You might have to drop one of your Ruptures just in favor of maybe like chucking out a kidney shot here and there to CC a mob or whatnot. But try and keep up at least 3 to 4. You generally want to be maintaining like 5 to 6 bleeds in total. So that's like any combination of ruptures and garrotes up, right? So if you have a lot of garrotes up, you can have a few less ruptures, but you will be missing out some damage. If you have a lot of well, once the pool gets rolling, you won't be able to have as many garrotes up, so you do want to be making sure that you have those ruptures going, and then just pretty much garroting something on cooldown. You can pretty much keep 2 to 3 garrotes up, because the cooldown is like 5 seconds. You can keep like 2 to 3 garrotes up most of the time with like 4 ruptures. That's perfect. You'll never run out of energy. So just make sure that you're really tracking Crimson Tempest, and then from there on, like if you're on 4 or less targets, you can keep up a slice and dice, and like you might have a chance here and there to just chuck an envenom in, which will just empower your Fan of Life slightly because it will apply your poisons, and also just like naturally refresh your slice and dice due to cut to the chase. Yeah, don't worry too much about your envenoms on like 4 or 5 or more targets. You won't really have any opportunity to use them. It's better to just keep ruptures on everything. I put some footage of me hitting 5 dummies. This is all with no cooldowns. Generally, how you want to be doing with your cooldowns is honestly just chuck Vendetta on a big mob or a prio target in the pack. I would only generally save it like maybe if there's a pride coming up after that pack, because Assassination is really good at slaying prides. So I would maybe save a Vendetta for a pride. Maybe I would save a Flagellation if it's going to line up with that Vendetta too. But Flagellation is pretty decent on AoE. Same with Bone Spike. If you're using Bone Spike, you'll just be throwing it out on as many targets as you can all the time. And with Flagellation, just use it before a finisher. It's haste, it's damage, it's literally just haste, which is going to scale with everything you're in AoE with anyway. So do be, use your Vendetta, use your Flagellation in AoE packs. That's absolutely fine. And also, if you're going to be going into a boss after a pride, doesn't really matter that you don't have Vendetta anyway, because as we said, we're going to be running Zoldyx, which means we're going to probably get that Vendetta. If we use it on the pride before the boss, we'll probably get that Vendetta back towards the execute phase of the boss anyway. So it's going to be coming up for around 30% potentially, in which case you're going to be getting more value from that Vendetta anyway, rather than using it on pull, right? So generally it's just overall more damage to do it that way. So generally with your cooldowns, you do want to be pretty much using them on cooldown the same as you would be with Outlaw. Same with Vanish, that is a cooldown of yours because it's going to activate your Subterfuge. You can use it on trash packs. In fact, it's better on trash packs even to just Vanish and then just do another triple Garrote again, because that Garrote does a lot of damage. Just use them all pretty freely. I would only really save maybe like a Vendetta for a pride, and other than that, pretty much just chuck everything out on cooldown. Just be careful when you are using your Vendetta that you don't use it on a target that's going to die soon or die very quick if people are nuking it with cooldowns or something. Try to pick out a mob that's going to live for at least a little bit. But obviously using a Vendetta, even on a mob that's going to die in 10 seconds and you're only going to get half the duration, it's still better than not using it at all and waiting until you feel like, oh, now I can use it. Generally, it's not that strong of a cooldown on trash. But it is if there's like a priority mob or something that's going to live for a while to get the most uptime out of that Vendetta. Generally on trash anyway, your strength is pretty much like the AoE sustained damage. It's absolutely crazy, especially when the mobs really start ramping up. You can just have so many bleeds out, so many Crimson Tempests, Crimson Tempest on everything. If there's more than 8 mobs, you can just double Crimson Tempest as well, and then you can have 16 mobs Crimson Tempested. Very few situations that's actually going to happen. I can think of maybe the Ardenweald section in DOS or something. One other thing to remember is that at the start of the pull, when you're putting your ruptures up initially, it's not too important to put like a 4 or 5 point rupture up on every single target. If you just want to get your energy rolling, it's okay to put a couple of 3 points, 2 point ruptures up just to get that energy ticking with venomous wounds. And then once you do start getting on top and you feel you've got like 2 to 3 ruptures up as well as your garrotes, you can start going back through the targets and cycling back through them. Obviously make sure you maintain your Crimson Tempest, and you can start putting 4 to 5 point ruptures on everything, and then those ruptures will just keep you going. As you can see on my bars, I have like my bars turning pink when my ruptures are running low, and then they go dark purple when my ruptures have run out. So it's a lot easier for me to track without looking for the small icon. I can just see the whole bar is like, oh, rupture's running out soon. So I can just like quickly tab through or click the bar that's running out soon, refresh my rupture. Make sure you're always watching your Crimson Tempest. I really need to stress that. But yeah, pretty much that is the AoE. So the single target is pretty much the same as in my other video. You can click up there somewhere if you want to see that. I did do a section on Shiv, which I'm about to talk about now. In the background, I'll put some footage of me just doing a single target rotation using Crimson Tempest. Basically, the way it works is the same as usual. You're going to be maintaining your Garrote, you're going to be maintaining your Rupture, and now you also want to try and maintain your Crimson Tempest as much as you can. But when you have a Shiv coming up, you want to be making sure that you maximize the envenoms that you do inside of that Shiv window. Obviously, spend on envenom when you've got nothing left to use your combo points on like Ruptures and Crimsons. When those are both up, you want to be envenoming. Obviously keeping Slice and Dice up as well through Cut to the Chase. But when you have a Shiv coming, it is important to put as many envenoms into that window as you can. If that means that if Crimson Tempest is dropping off at some point during that during that Shiv, that means that you do not spend on the Crimson Tempest. You wait until your Shiv window is finished, so you keep using envenoms, and then after the Shiv is over, that's when you can go back to refreshing your Crimson Tempest. And on single target, Rupture is also taking priority of that. So I'll put on screen for you now to make it a little bit easier to understand what I'm saying. The priority list pretty much for single target will be Slice and Dice, Garrotes, Ruptures, Shived Envenoms, and then Crimson Tempest, and then normal Envenoms. Okay. So yeah, that's about it, guys. If there's anything I missed, feel free to call me out in the comment section below. As I mentioned, you can ask me anything down there as well, or you can head to my stream, ask me anything there, or you can just come to my stream and hang out. That's all cool too. I'd love to see as many of you there as possible. But yeah, that's about it. Anything else that you're like not too sure about, I might have talked about in the other video, so check there as well. I'll definitely link that one in the description below. I'll probably put it on the screen up in the top right with a little like highlight card thingy or something as well. So do be sure to check that video out if you're very, very interested in Assassination. As I said at the start, don't think it's quite as strong as Outlaw, but I do think it's a fun spec. And if you really, really get used to like the dot tracking and stuff, because it gets quite hectic on AoE, if you do get used to keeping up all of those bleeds, you pretty much have infinite energy and you can just spam your buttons like crazy, and it just starts to feel just like this global cooldown lock class, and it's really, really nice. So yeah, give it a go. Let me know what you thought. And hopefully I'll see all you guys in the next video. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Because yeah, YouTube is going pretty good recently. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you as well for 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I feel like I should say that. So thank you guys for being here, especially if you're a subscriber. Yeah, I'll probably try and think of some kind of meme video to celebrate that. I was working on like a little meme thing, but yeah, hopefully that will come out soonish if I get that out before 2K potentially. Anyway, guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching this far, and if you made it to the end, big shout out to you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Enjoy your evenings or days or mornings, and yeah, until next time, peace.